We have 3 minutes to go before the speak out begins. To ensure the smooth flow of the program, may we request all members of the audience to mute their mic except when called to speak. This event is being brought to you by the Asian Rural Women Coalition. While waiting, Pan Asia Pacific wishes to announce the launch of their new book, Pandemic of Hunger, Asserting Women's Rights Amid COVID 19. The book documents COVID 19's impact on food security and how rural women are affected by the pandemic. To subscribe to this book, you may download it at www.panup.net. Again, may we remind our audience that we have 3 minutes to go before the Speak Out begins. This event is being brought to you by the Asian Rural Women's Coalition. While waiting, Pan Asia Pacific wishes to announce the launch of their new book, Pandemic of Hunger, Asserting People's Rights Amid the COVID 19. The book documents COVID 19's impact on food security and how rural communities are responding to the crisis and asserting their right to food. It can be downloaded at www.panup.net. To know more about the initiatives hosted by the Asian Rural Women's Coalition, you may visit the respective Facebook pages. Our event is also being broadcasted on Twitter and Facebook, so you may check the live updates through those social media accounts. We would like to thank our audience for patiently waiting for the Speak Out to begin. Right now, we're just encountering a few technicalities for our live Facebook broadcast. For the meantime, we highly encourage you to make yourselves comfortable and prepare questions for our speakers to answer. I'm very sure that our speakers are highly welcome of answering questions about the state and conditions of rural women in Asia. Again, we would like to remind our audience that the program will begin in a few minutes. While the technicalities are being arranged or fixed for our FB Live broadcast, we highly encourage our audience to think of the questions you might want to ask our panelists during the duration of our program. I'm sure that our panelists are very excited to have all of you and answer your questions for this activity. Thank you, everybody, for patiently waiting for the program to begin. Now that we're done and we're live, we will start with our Speak Out sessions. Good day, everybody. I'm Nalene Fabian, your host for today. I am from Gabriela Youth, UP Diliman, a progressive national alliance of women's organizations bound to fight violence against women and uphold the basic human rights of all Filipino citizens. This event is very close to me because it's really about women empowerment and fighting for the welfare of all Filipino and all Asian women. Before we start, please be reminded of the following house rules. The audience may speak, however, they must be called upon during the Q&A session. Panelists must turn off their cameras and mute their mics when not speaking. If you wish to address your Q&As via chat, you may raise your hand to speak or you may type them in the chat box. Our program will approximately run for 2 hours. Our speakers will share their testimonies in this order. Firstly, the opening remarks will be delivered by Ms. Fatima Bernard of SERED. Our first speak out will be from Ms. Shanti of India. This will be followed by Ms. Cassie Estavillo and Ms. Aleli Abrazaldo from the Philippines. The third talk will be delivered by Ms. Saira Chiria of ARO. Our fourth speaker is Ms. Widya Ramayanti from Indonesia. Her testimony will be followed by Ms. Nirmala Shrestas from Nepal, and this will be succeeded by Ms. Venita from Sri Lanka. Next, we'll be hearing from Ms. Hosne Arahafi from Bangladesh. And last but definitely not the least, the closing remarks will be delivered by Ms. Saroheni Rengam of Pan Asia Pacific. Question and answer sessions will be held in between a couple of speakers. So we highly encourage everyone to have their questions ready for the panel. Without further ado, we begin the speak out. We'd like to start with a strong testimony from a woman farmer in Nepal through a video brought to us by the Women's Rehabilitation Center. Let us all tune in.
बड़ समस्या छली सर लॉकडाउन में कतहु के आबि पाइ नहीं छलिए सब तर सब कतहु बंद छलिए तऽ कहाँ से कोन उपाय मन धियो पुता के मन खराब भेल तऽ कोनो उपाय नहीं छलिए तऽ कर्जे लऽ के लबै छलिए दवाई बीरो करै छलिए खर्चो पानी किने के चाउर दालि सब अथी करै छलिए तऽ सब अथिए लऽ के करै छलिए कहूँ के उपाय नहीं छलिए तऽ कथी करती तो यही सब समस्या सब बड़ छलिए लॉकडाउन में तो सब कतहु बंद छलिए कतहु के अथी नहीं छलिए तो कहाँ से कथी करबे कमाहू वाला छलखिन घर ही तो के कहाँ से ढोआ कौड़ी अथी से अथी करबै तो सब कर्जे लऽ के आन के करै छलिए कतहु नहीं बाहर से बिया अथी दुकान सब में से बिये नहीं दै छलिए तो कहाँ से बिया हुआ लती से रोपती तरकारी उरकारी तो सब थपे चलिए इहे सब जीरा जिमनी सब रहलिए गाँव घर में तो वही सब अथी कऽ के तो रोपने छलिए तो वही सबके तरकारी होइ छलिए आ बाजार के सब दिन घरे के तरकारी चलै छै फिर तो बाजारों से लाए पड़ै छै ने तो बाजार में ढौआ रहती तब नहीं लती डरे नहीं लै छलिए ना कोरोना वायरस के तरकारी सब केना मुदा लू तो लोग तरकारियों नहीं लै छलिए बंदी में पुलिस सब मारे छलिए तरकारी सब फेंक दै छलिए तो केना जत बेचे जलेसर में बाजार में आ गाँव से निकल ही नहीं दै छलिए तो सब खेते में सैर उड़ गेल खेते में रह गेल तो सरकार के कहै छी आब अथी पानी के साधन अथी कर दो अथी बीज सब के अथी सब दो सब रंग के अथी सब दती तब न करबे खेती बाड़ी तब न अथी होती आमदनी होती बेसी भी जलेसरे के बार जाए पड़ी न गाँव में तो बाजार नहीं लगी के बार जलेसरे ल जाए पड़ी तो ठेला रहती तब न ठेला रहती तो ठेला पर धऽ के ल जैती जलेसर में हाँ चलो जाए छलिए एते खेती में चल जाए छलिए अपन सब परिवार के सब अथी भ जाए छलिए जाले तरकारी सब रह चलता ले सब नहीं छलिए हम सब जान ले तो वो अथी किन किन के लबै छलिए खाद सब दवाई सब तो वह सब छीटी छलिए बाजार से ले किन के आ वह सब छिटली अथी वाली सब पर हाँ तो आप दीदी तालीम देलखिन तो यहाँ से अब घरे के अपन सब व्यवस्था करके तब करै छी
Thank you for that video. This clearly shows us how the COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately affected rural women. In these trying times, they face the continuing threat of food insecurity, malnutrition, increased livelihood loss, and heightened gender discrimination. We are gathered here today to hear women food producers from across Asia voice their truths. This event is brought to you by the Asian Rural Women's Coalition, or ARWC. Founded in 2008, the ARWC strives to advance the struggle for rights and interests of all rural women in Asia. We would like to thank participating organizations for bringing this event into its fruition. The Beyond Beijing Committee of Nepal, the Women's Awareness Group of Nepal, Seruni, Indonesia, the Society of Rural Education, or SRED in India, the Asia Pacific Resource and Research Center for Women, or ARO, Vikalpani National Women's Federation of Sri Lanka, the Jagonari Bangladesh, Gabriela Women's Rehabilitation Center, or WAREC Nepal, and Pan Asia Pacific. It is through these collaborations that we become more aware of the trends and things we must fight for to make women's condition better than they are today. Now we begin with our opening remarks. Let us welcome a longtime leader of the Dalit women's movement. She's the founder of the Tamil Nadu Women's Forum and SERED, member formations of the steering committee of ARWC. A warm welcome to Ms. Fatima Burman.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we
Is
can
it
talk.
okay? Yeah, thank
Yes.
you very much. I'm very happy as the Asian Rural Women's Coalition has brought women from all over Asia, and it's a very beautiful day. And thanks Kanapi, especially Ilan and Tharo for organizing and bringing us together. It's the International Rural Women's Day. And October 15th is every day we remember it. This year, the theme of the International Women's Day is building rural women's resilience in the wake of COVID. How are we surviving? What are we doing? How are we challenging the system, especially in COVID-19 situation? We continue to struggle to survive every day. Because of this situation, it has intensified our struggles for survival. And it is deprivation of health services and recognizing our increasing work at home, and we have no better services of water, health, electricity, sanitation, and other basic services. As rural women, we are food producers, we work in the field, at home, as unpaid workers, and we are responsible for domestic work, and we work at home and also work outside. We are agriculture workers, produce food, but we are paid less than the men. 40% we are getting less wages than the men. We are landless, we do not own land, not even own tools, means of production, and we are getting less education, and we are forced to work in the informal sector. We are involved in every process of agricultural operation, tilling, until harvesting and post-harvesting, yet we are not called as farmers. Women are called as wives. The finance is not in our hands, and we have no assets to own and no access to market and agriculture production. If all this is in our hands, we will increase the number of hungry people which may fall by. We will definitely, in such an occasion, there will be considerable decline. It's a decline in the number of hungry people when women have all this in our hands, from 100 to 150 million. We are daily struggling, and we are providing food and other services to families, but
Hello, Miss Fatima. Are you still with us? While fixing a few technical difficulties right now, we will be watching a video to espouse more and to give us more context about the situation of rural women over Asia. Again, while fixing a few technical difficulties at the moment, we will be watching a video espousing and detailing more about the conditions faced by rural women over Asia.
I am Venda from Sirinamalli village. I have two daughters. Received one goat from Dalit Women's Movement. Every year I have two new goats. I sell the goats, spend money for my daughter's education and health. I work in the field in the morning. In the afternoon, I take care of the goat. I tell the farmers not to use pesticides because it creates health problem. I advise farmers use natural compost. We will live without diseases. I promote natural farming in my village. Thank you.
That was a very informative video. Now, if all technical difficulties are sorted out, may we once again welcome Miss Fatima Bornan. Miss Fatima, are you here with us?
Hello.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can clearly hear you. You may continue with your remarks.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I really wanted to say that we are contributing to food production, and it is because we are securing the food and nutrition of all people. We manage land and natural resources and responsible for building climate resilience. We produce in Asia, Africa, Sub-Saharan 80% of food and supports the livelihood of 2.5 billion people today. We are food processors. We are proud of that. But we do not have access to land, credit, agricultural inputs. On top of all that, we are paid very low wages. And we are denied decision-making power and have less participation in politics. As per the
Ma'am?
world population, we are 1/4 of the population. Hear me? Hello?
Ma'am, can you turn on
Do you
your
hear me?
camera? Yes, ma'am, we can talk. Can you turn on your camera?
Yeah.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Can you see me?
Yes, ma'am, we can already
Yeah.
see you.
See, I
Thank
really
you.
wanted to. Yeah. We are here today to speak about the food system, which is to be radically transformed. The food system is unhealthy, unjustice, unsustainable system. And which creates food insecurity and malnutrition. Livelihood increases work burden and gender-based violence also during the pandemic, this COVID pandemic. Corporate control of food system denies rural women livelihood opportunity, and meted out to injustices. It is a corporate which controls the industrial food products, which is very bad to our health. And COVID-19 weakened the food system. There is no food security, nutrition for all. Food controlled and produced by corporate, which are very unhealthy. 2 billion people have no access to food today. The COVID system doubled the burden. 132 million are going hungry in COVID situation. Because of the corporate control food system, we are exporting cash crops and 380 million in Asia are undernourished. I would like to say that food is our culture, not a commodity. We have every right as rural women to challenge the food system by the corporates, which is for greedy for profit, for more profit. We have traditional knowledge on seeds. We have lost control over seeds, which is now in the hands of corporate. We are milk producers, and the milk products are exported today. And we have food system. The change we have to challenge to all of us is the corporates to go out of our country. Food is life. Food is without poison. As rural women, we have to fight. We have every right to get our natural resources back from the corporates. Food is culture. Agroecology is the transition of the food system. We need to really promote agroecology, which is the asserting food autonomy. Food is produced, distributed, exchanged for taking care of our lives and not for profit making. Agroecology is in its discrimination, violence, gender inequality, and ethnicity. Agroecology is organic, regenerative. It is an alternative, includes livestock, preserve ecology and health system. I would like to ask all our rural women, it's a big challenge that we are going to face on the September 2021 of the Food System Summit, which is Food Summit. It's not the People's Summit. It is the corporate capture. It's the denial of the corporates are taking away our democratic spaces and denial of our rights. The whole Food System Summit is in the hands of corporates. We have to really promote more the concepts, practice the concept of agroecology, which is people-centered, nature-centered, discrimination-free. It is participatory, sustainable food system. With less input, it feeds the world and enough food for all. Agroecology is food security with self-sufficiency, preserving healthy soil. Rural women demand for food, land, distribution. Food sovereignty is our goal. We have to fight for food systems change. We have to resist a world of hunger and struggle for land and food sovereignty. Rural women united will never be defeated. Long live rural women's movement. Long live international solidarity. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Long live rural women indeed. We have a long way to go and fight before the efforts of women are genuinely recognized. We have to remember the importance of these efforts towards achieving food security. Thank you, Ms. Bornaud, for those insightful remarks. We now proceed to our speak out sessions. Now, to give us further context about situation, let us listen to a community organizer of rural women from SDRED. Ms. Shanti is based in Arokkam, Tamil Nadu, India. Her speak out will be translated by Ms. Fatima. Ms. Fatima and Ms. Shanti, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, you may begin.
தமிழக அரசு ஊரடங்கு உத்தரவு இருளர் மக்கள், மாத்தமார்கள், பாலியல் பலாத்காரம், பெண்கள், சிறு தொழிலாளர்கள், விவசாய கூலிகள், பெண்கள், வீட்டு வேலை செய்யும் பெண்கள், இந்த பெண்கள் எல்லாம் வந்து இந்த கொரோனா வைரஸால அதிகப்படியாக பெண்களுக்கு வந்து
வருமானம் இல்ல, குடும்பத்தை கவனித்து கொள்ள முடியல. ஒரு நாள் சம்பாதிக்கிற அந்த கூலியை வச்சுதான் அன்றாடம் அவங்க குடும்பத்தை நடத்துறாங்க. இதுல தனித்து வாழும் பெண்களும் கணவனால் கைவிடப்பட்ட பெண்களும் இந்த ஊரடங்கு உத்தரவால அதிகப்படியான வறுமையை சந்திக்கிறாங்க. வேலை இல்ல, அதனால கையில பணம் இல்ல, குடும்பத்துல
Ma'am
தேவையான
Shanti,
பொருட்களை வாங்க
Ma'am
முடியாதாங்க.
Fatima, excuse me. May we, the audio is somehow unclear. May we adjust a bit? You may continue.
இதனால குடும்பத்துல அதிகப்படியான வன்முறை, அது மட்டும் இல்லாம அந்த பெண்களுக்கு மனரீதியா உடல் ரீதியான வன்முறைகளை சந்திக்கிறாங்க. இப்ப பாத்தீங்கன்னா அதிகப்படியா அக்ரோஎக்காலஜி அந்த காலத்துல செய்யற விவசாயம் போல பெண்கள் விவசாயம் செய்யணும். அந்த விவசாயம் செய்யறதுக்கு பெண்கள் நில உரிமையாளர்களாக வேண்டும். பெண்கள் கூட்டா சேர்ந்து விவசாயம் செய்யணும். பெண்களுக்கு பொது நிலங்களை கண்டறிந்து அதுல கூட்டா வேலை செய்யணும். பல விதமான ஊடு பயிர்களை அவங்க செய்யணும். அது மட்டும் இல்லாம அந்த நிலத்திலேயே ஆடு மாடு கோழி வாத்து இது போல மீன் பண்ணு வைக்கிறது, இதெல்லாம் நிலத்திலேயோட நிலமா அவங்க செய்யணும். இயற்கை உரங்களை தான் அதிகப்படியா விவசாயத்துல செய்யணும். அதுக்கு இயற்கை உரங்கள் பயன்படுத்தணும். இயற்கையான முறையில பூச்சிக்கொல்லி விஷத்தை பயன்படுத்தாம நிலத்துல சிறு தானியங்களை பயிர வச்சு இந்த நிலத்தை பாதுகாக்கப்படணும். அதுக்கு நம்ம ஆரோக்கியமான உணவை சாப்பிடணும்னா இந்த பூச்சிக்கொல்லி விஷத்தை பயன்படுத்தாம நாம குழந்தைகளையும் பெண்களையும் சத்தான ஆகாரத்தை உணவு கொள்ள முடியும். இல்லைன்னா பெண்கள் ரொம்ப அனிமிக்கா இருக்கிறாங்க, குழந்தைகள் அனிமிக்கா இருக்கிறாங்க. இந்த கொரோனா வைரஸ் காரணமா ஊரடங்கு உத்தரவு போட்டதுனால இந்த MNREGA ப்ரோக்ராம்ல கூட அந்த வேலையில முடங்கி கிடக்குறாங்க. பெண்கள் இடம்பெயர்ந்து வேலைக்கு போனவங்க கூட வீடு திரும்ப முடியாம குழந்தைகளை பார்க்க முடியல, கணவனை பார்க்க முடியல, உற்றார் உறவினர்களை பார்க்க முடியல. இவங்க இறந்து போனா கூட அவங்கள அந்த துக்கத்தை பங்கேற்க முடியாம ரொம்பவும் கஷ்டப்படுறாங்க. இப்படிப்பட்ட சூழ்நிலையில பெண்களுக்கு அரசு என்ன மாதிரி செய்யணும், பாரம்பரிய விதைகளை விவசாய பெண்கள் பாதுகாக்கப்படணும். இயற்கை உரங்களை தொடர்ந்து கடைபிடிக்கணும். இதுக்கு நாங்க நிறைய இயற்கை உரங்களை தயார் பண்ணணும்ன்ற உரம் தயாரிக்கிறது, உரம் தயாரிக்கிறது, இது போல அந்த பயிற்சி பெண்கள் சிறுதானியங்களை செஞ்சு அந்த சிறுதானியங்களை அந்த பெண்களே பகிர்ந்துக்கிறாங்க. இப்ப எங்களோட கோரிக்கை நாங்க என்ன சொல்றோம் சொன்னா, இந்த கொரோனா வைரஸ் ஆக்கப்பட்ட குடும்பங்களுக்கு 25,000 அவங்களுக்கு காப்பீட்டு வழங்கணும். அது மட்டும் இல்லாத முதியோர்களுக்கு கொடுக்குறாங்க. அது
Yes, Nolin.
May you translate Miss Shanti's testimony?
Saras is reading.
Shanti,
I am Shanti. Hello.
Hello, ma'am. Yes,
I am
ma'am.
Shanti. Yeah, I am Shanti, coordinator of Rural Women's Liberation Movement. Lockdown started in March, still today. All of us are unable to work, to earn, and staying at home. As rural women, landless, no work, no income, no savings only. If we work, we earn, then take care of family. We are living poverty condition, unable to buy anything. Domestic violence increase, not able to repay loans. Depression, not able to feed children properly. Women are trained to do natural farming. Women should be mobilized to get land rights. We are aiming for sustainable agroecology farm. We are promoting collective farming, taking lands illegally occupied by other community. We are also having goats in the farm. We encourage our farmers to do organic farming. We are using natural manure, no use of pesticides. No pesticide is used in our villages. We use traditional seeds, panchakavyam as a natural pest control. We compost making, we use vermiculture training program. We follow the agroecology system, that is alternate food system that will provide health food to all of us. We are demanding local government to allow women to have share in the common property. We try to traditional seeds using natural manure. We are demanding
memberikan
government to
perempuan
recognize
di desa
women as farmers. Government should pay 25 lakh to the
properti bagi
family
diri
who lost their
bagi
lives due
perempuan
to
di desa.
COVID. OAP should be continued. Loans given to farmers should be cancelled. Monthly rupees 6,000 given to families. No job. MGNRJ demanding 20 days and 300 rupees per day. We need primary health center function 24 hours for better health services. Thank you.
You're good, Ma'am
Hello?
Shanti and Ma'am Fatima. You're good with the testimonial.
Yeah.
All right, we would like to thank our first two speakers for the Speak Out session. We will now move on to our speakers from the Philippines. Our first speaker is a farmer leader from the
Lanka.
Isabela province. Let us all welcome Miss Aleli Abrazaldo. Miss Aleli, are you good with your audio and your video?
Good, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Aleli Ablasado, organizer of women farmers and agricultural workers in Isabela, northern province of the Philippines. During the months of March 17 until July of this year, women peasants and their families in our province have experienced a very difficult period during the enhanced community quarantine and the extreme and enhanced community quarantine. The Philippines has experienced the longest and the most harsh lockdown during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Most affected were the availability of food, opportunity to produce food, or to be able to work. The pandemic struck when we were preparing for the harvest season, and we still had no income from our farms. Last April, our corn harvest was affected by too much rain at the wrong time. So the harvest was decreased by about 30%, while the palay harvest was stunted because it was due to too much cold during the December months. During the September harvest, this harvest, drought affected our corn yield again. 62% was destroyed, and palay farm gate prices severely declined, and we have no income with 12 pesos per kilo farm gate price of palay. Zero income. Due to the pandemic, poor farmers and agricultural workers lost half of their combined family incomes because of the restriction in mobility, a decrease of operation of the market, and several business establishments have closed. The members of peasant families lost the additional income they derived from selling
Ma'am? Ma'am Aleli, are you with us? Ma'am Aleli? All right po, while we wait for Miss Aleli to fix her audio, we will now proceed with the testimonial of Miss Kathy Estavillo. Miss Kathy Estavillo is the Secretary General of Amihan National Federation of Peasant Women in the Philippines. Miss Kathy?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. May you turn on your video?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
There's a video. Okay, there. Can you
All
see
right,
me?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am, and we can hear you too. You may proceed.
I have a PowerPoint. I've sent a PowerPoint to, hello?
Hello, ma'am. Yes, you may continue.
I had a PowerPoint and I sent it to Ilang.
Yes, ma'am, we can see the PowerPoint right now.
I cannot see I don't have the screen. What happened?
Ma'am, the PPT can be seen by the audience. If you want to proceed to the next slide, you just have to tell a
Okay,
slide so we
there.
can proceed.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
For Amihan, the National Federation of Peasant Women, before the pandemic, we are already experiencing massive hunger due to this. Most of the wealth of the Filipino people, land and resources are being controlled by the few big landlords and the multinational corporations. No, so even before the pandemic, massive hunger are already being experienced by the Filipino people. Next slide, please. So during the pandemic, also the response of the government is being militarized. No, militarized, like there are many what do you call this, checkpoints in the different communities. No, and despite that, lack of medical measures, mass testing, contact tracing, even medical facilities, and it's the rural women, peasant women are being are hard up for this kind of system situation. Also, the blocking and hampering of the travel of food and other agricultural products, where there are produce that are being destroyed, no, dumped in the highways because they can't bring their products to the market. No, also farm workers and fisher folks are being stopped in going to their farms because of this lockdown, and there are many checkpoints in their communities. Next slide, please. So, like Aleli, what have said while ago, lacking support, no, very few. Our peasant women receive very few support. If ever they receive any, it's only good for 3 days, no. And also the bureaucratic, where they see if this receiver or these people who receive this relief, if they are pro-government or member of the organizations, there is a problem in that. No, really selective and very insufficient. So we could see here that peasant women have placards in the field demanding a support subsidy from the government, at least 10,000 pesos and 15,000 pesos, to ensure that our peasants will continue their farming. Next slide, please. So we could see that during the hunger and even now, poverty has worsened, wherein 30.7% are or 7.6 million Filipino families experience hunger. No? Some families survive by eating root crops, while others eat once or twice a day to save on food. To cope up, peasant families became victims of usury and loans with exploitative interest rates. This is very common in the farming area, in the chapters of Anihan, wherein it's very hard. They are very hard up because there's no available support from the government, and they can't go out from their communities to look for odd jobs. Next slide, please. So even during the pandemic, peasant communities are being attacked by goons and military forces. You could see here, wherein a community in Laguna, where women are barricading, so the military and the goons can enter their communities, because this community is being land grabbed by a landlord. No, so you could see there the guns wherein peasant women is holding onto, so they can they can enter their community. So it's the peasant women who is in the forefront of this land dispute, in the forefront to defend their community, their land. So it will not be taken by this landlord. This is in Hacienda Yulo. And despite this pandemic, the solution of this of the government is the implementation of these neoliberal policies, wherein most of our, which has really affected the livelihood of our farmers and fisher folks, and of course our country's food security. You know, the program of the Department of Agriculture is it's a market-driven response, and continue the implementation of neoliberal policies and agriculture, and the failure to resolve problems of food producers and agricultural production. No, the influx of because this imported rice, because of this rice liberalization law, we even encourage importation of fish. Imagine that we are surrounded by sea and body of water, and this government is planning or is importing fish, pork, and also chicken. So this really affects our food productions, because this imported, because our local production cannot compete with importation due to the high production cost. So this really makes our farmers, our fisher folks, our poultry raisers going bankrupt.
Ma'am,
Yes. So
may we
during the
remind to wrap up po in 2 minutes?
okay, no.
Thank
So the
you.
role of peasant women and organizations during pandemic, you could see here the different activities launched by Amihan in the different chapters, wherein we launched relief operations in the different chapters, and we also launched these trainings and actions in the field, so they could see, so they could show the demands, and they could show the demands to the government. no? But until now, the demands of the peasants are not being answered by the Duterte regime. Okay, next slide, please. So these are the demands of the peasant women of Amihan and the whole peasantry. No, implement a genuine agrarian reform, freeze land use conversion, which is very rampant now, expand agricultural land, prioritize agriculture in the national budget, no? Increase land productivity through peasant-led agroecology system,
Tutukan.
increase the farm gate price of agricultural products, like what Alili have said, the price of paray is really very low, no? Junk liberal policies in food and agriculture, higher wages and better working conditions for agricultural workers, provide socioeconomic assistance during calamities, strengthen the spirit of agricultural cooperation, and the last one is uphold peasants' democratic rights and fundamental freedom. No, so these are our demands. Now, in which during our campaign we lobby in the Senate and the different agencies of the government. So we would like to tell that rural women of the world should stand up for our rights, land, food, and justice now. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experiences, Miss Fatima, Miss Shanti, Miss Kathy, and Miss Alili. We are now opening our first question and answer session. Before we proceed, please be reminded of the following. You may type your questions at the Q&A box or the chat section of our Zoom room. Please use the raise hand function when you wish to ask the question yourself live. Now we may proceed. Do we have any questions or queries from our audience that the first four speakers can address? Once again, if you wish to address your questions live, you may use the raise hand function so the host can call you. But if you wish me to read your questions instead, you may type them at the Zoom chat or the questions and answer box. All right, since we have no questions coming from our audience, we will now proceed to the next speak out. Once again, I would like to thank the four speakers for sharing your personal experiences. Now to share with us the impacts of COVID-19 on the sexual and reproductive health and rights, we welcome the Deputy Executive Director of the Asia Pacific Resource and Research Center for Women, ARO. ARO is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The formation and the speak out will be led by Ms. Sai Rachiria. Ms. Sai, are you here?
Thanks, Nolin. I'm here, and a good day to everyone. And firstly, I would like to, can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Yeah, and you can see my screen?
May you try speaking so we can see if the interface is working?
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can see your screen.
Okay, so good day to everyone, and I would like to firstly echo in solidarity all the testimonials and all the presentations that our other sisters have made. We are definitely with you, and we totally recognize with you the issues that impact rural women, and we will present the aspects of sexual and reproductive health and rights impact on rural women as part of this presentation. Just to very briefly talk about ARROW, we are a regional women's organization and we are based in the Asia and the Pacific region. We work on issues of gender and sexuality. And for us, we believe in the importance of the convergence of struggles on food security and the nutrition, land, water, seeds, but also its connection with sexual and reproductive health and rights. I would not take a lot of time, so this presentation can be shared with you later. But key points of emphasis for us is around what are those connections of food systems, rural women, and sexual and reproductive health and rights. And I will throw some light on those aspects. Firstly, with regards to the Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is focused on ending hunger, and where are we in regards to that? And we see a huge role for rural women around this. So rural women, especially marginalized women and girls around the globe, they are suffering from increased hunger and poverty. And this has been talked about in the testimonials by the previous speakers. The World Food Programme has estimated that a number of people facing acute hunger, it will stand to rise at about 265 million this year. And this is a huge increase as a result of the impact of the COVID-19 scenarios. And hello?
Hello. Before we proceed, may we give a reminder to our audience?
Yes, please.
All right. For the audience who wish to subscribe to the Bahasa channel, you may click on the interpretation section, then click on the German channel to access the Bahasa translation of Ma'am Sai's presentation. Thank you. Ma'am, you may proceed.
Thank you, Nolene. And yes, I think I'm also sorry for this presentation in English, but this is what we will have to do. And hopefully we will be sharing this presentation so you have access to this information with you. So basically going back to the presentation on what are those connections with food systems, rural women, and sexual and reproductive health and rights. And it has been reiterated in the previous presentations that the food and agricultural systems have failed us. As a result of it, ending hunger in the region especially is a far-fetched reality. Also, the profit-motivated technological means such as use of commercially high-yielding crop varieties, the genetically engineered seeds, hazardous pesticides, and also the control by handful of oligarchic corporations, all are having impact on how rural women livelihoods are impacted. Looking at the human rights dimensions, we see that human rights dimensions, they are indivisible, they are interconnected, and the right to food and nutrition, it is linked to many other human rights. And similarly, the right to adequate food and nutrition, it cannot be separated by the rights, or it cannot be separated from the rights to self-determination or autonomy or bodily rights. So we have to look at rights in its holistic aspect. So the right of adequate food and nutrition is connected to right to self-determination, autonomy, and bodily rights. Women will have to first control our own bodies, our own sexuality, and our own fertility for us to meaningfully exercise.
Hak atas tanah dan makanan itu berhubungan dengan bagaimana itu terhubung dengan hak atas tubuh perempuan.
And you can actually look at our website, and there is this journal that we have published in the past, that is the traveling journal on sexual and reproductive health and rights, Our Stories One Journey, where we have talked to rural women in different countries in the region, but also in Africa. And one thing that actually comes out is that rural women largely remain unaware of their sexual and reproductive health and rights, and this is violated in every conceivable manner. The violation of sexual and reproductive health and rights of rural women, it actually takes place in the form of child marriage, early pregnancies, sexual rights to passage, female genital mutilation, gender-based violence, rape, domestic violence. These are all the things how sexual and reproductive health and rights are violated, unsafe abortions. So these are the aspects that we look at, and these are the connections of rural women to sexual and reproductive health and rights. There are many other stories. You can actually access this presentation later. But also with regards to COVID-19 and the research that ARROW has done in the recent months, it actually shows further exacerbation of these violations. And what we see is the pandemic in Asia is threatening the stagnation of progress towards the SDG goals, especially the goal on zero hunger. The Food and Agriculture Organization has also reiterated this, like food, trade, health, and climate are interdependent, and the pandemic has revealed the fragility of these linkages. In India, we have seen a survey by Swati, an NGO. It has actually looked at what is the impact of rural women and COVID-19, and it actually points to the fact that technology remains a huge barrier. Like 16% of women and girls have access to mobile phones as compared to 94% of young men. So you can see that whole gender divide of rural women having less access to mobile phones and technology in comparison to the men or young men as such. And this digital divide actually has huge repercussions on rural women's access to every information, including sexual and reproductive health and rights information. Similarly, in Malaysia, when we have done an interview with a doctor based in Sabah, she was actually talking about how the quarantine centers where rural women had come in, they were very poorly equipped, and families did not have enough clothes to last for a 14-day quarantine, and they did not, and rural women did not have access to enough milk, diapers for their babies when they come along with their husbands who are infected with COVID-19. So these are some of those effects of COVID-19 on rural women. At the same time, we also see that I see a hand raised, but we can take the questions later. And also in Bangladesh, we have seen that there is an increased incidence of sexual and gender-based violence as a result of COVID-19. Overall recommendation, and we echo whatever the presentations have been made by the preceding speakers, we definitely need to ensure that the government-led policies and plans responding to the pandemic, they must classify sexual and reproductive health and rights as essential services, and these should be available to the rural women. We also need to ensure that shelter homes for sexual and gender-based survivors need to be available in rural areas. We need to have data that is sex disaggregated in order to see how the program planning and policy making is happening and it is supporting rural women. And also, I think the emphasis needs to be on the implementation of the global standards, norms and standards, such as the CEDAW General Recommendation 34 on the rights of rural women. That needs to be taken into account, as well as we need to see that this is the time, and our previous speaker has also talked about food sovereignty. And what do we mean by food sovereignty? It is a right of people and communities to decide and implement your own agricultural, labor, food, and land policies. And this must be realized by rural women. The attainment of sexual and reproductive health and rights, or the control over women's own bodies and dignity, this is linked with the control over land and other resources. And this will only be possible if rural women are able to exercise food sovereignty, food security at their level. So with that intervention, I am closing, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Sai, for those educating remarks. We are now opening the table for questions. Again, if you wish to address a question live, you may turn on your mic so Ms. Sai can address whatever queries we have from our audience. If you wish me to read the questions, you may type them in the question and answer portion. Do we have any members of our audience who would wish to address or manifest any questions for Ms. Syra Chiria? If you have any questions, you may turn on your mics to speak.
Hi, my name is Sarojini Rangam with Pan Asia Pacific. I had a question regarding the links. How do you see the SDGs now, given the COVID-19 pandemic? You talked about poverty and food, but what about the women's rights? Are they how badly are they being affected? Are we even close, in terms of getting some of the indicators in terms of women's empowerment? Thank you.
Thanks, Sarojini, for that question. Even before the pandemic, the most recent Asia-Pacific SDG Progress Report that has been published by the UN, it actually says that when it comes to gender equality, which is the SDG goal 5, there is far too less progress. That is what is the assessment. It says far too less progress when it comes to gender equality. Now, with the impact of COVID, what we see is definitely there is going to be a reversal in whatever progress that has been in regards to SDG 5, which is on gender equality. And we will take a long time even to step back. We have taken lots of step back, and now it will take us long time in order to, even meet the SDG goals. And this is a sad state of affairs, actually.
Thank you, Sai. That was,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Ma'am, we have another question in our chat box. May I read it for you? From Ma'am Aleli Abrazado, are there researches that show the effects to women's fertility, hormonal balance, enjoyment of sex of the herbicides of Monsanto?
That's a very valid question, Aleli. Generally, I don't think there are any published literature that can show those direct linkages, but definitely there are, effects of all these pesticides on the overall health and well-being of women, and especially on their overall sexual and reproductive health and rights. But as of now, I would not say that there are direct linkages to fertility that has been established as such.
Can I make a short input into this? Because as you know, glyphosate, or the one that's being produced by Monsanto, is it's a probable carcinogen in terms of human health. So yeah, okay. And so tomorrow we have a webinar actually I'll share this later, but I can't remember the time. It's tomorrow. There will be a webinar where we are launching a report on glyphosate and the impact on health. So please join us. There's also going to be a doctor there, and we will be talking about all the different impacts. So we know that there is breast cancer, it's a cancer, carcinogen, but also there are studies, animal studies basically, that links some of the herbicides to endocrine disruption or hormonal disruption. But as Sai was saying, the direct links are often difficult to show, especially if it is chronic effects. But some studies are actually revealing the impacts of glyphosate or Roundup in terms of the Monsanto, which is now being bought over by Bayer. Anyway, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your very insightful queries and manifestations. Unfortunately, we'll have to end the second round of question and answers here. So now we will proceed to our next speak out. Thank you, Ma'am Sai. Our next speaker is a leader of the oil palm plantation workers in the Riau province, Indonesia. She is also a member of the women's group Seruni. Let us all welcome Ms. Widya Ramayanti. Her speak out will be translated by Ms. Triana Cornia Wardani, Secretary General of Seruni. To access the simultrans English translation, please click on the interpretation button beside the Q&A icon. Once you press on the interpretation button, kindly click on the English channel. For the members of our audience who wish to listen to the speech in Bahasa, you may still remain on the German channel. Thank you. Miss Widya, are you here? Miss Widya?
Hello?
Hello, yes, ma'am. May you turn on your video so the audience may see you? Ma'am Widya, are you here po? Are you here with us?
Macet HP-ku. Halo.
Hello, Ma'am Widya.
Halo. Tunggu dulu.
Hello?
Bisa buka kan kameraku kan?
Before we begin with our next set of speakers, we will now be playing videos of rural women for the audience to know more about their conditions. Again, before we begin with our next round of talks, we will be playing videos of rural women across Asia. Please tune in by watching our screens. Thank you very much.
Halo.
Hello? Ma'am Widya?
Apakah tidak ada videonya di sini?
May you turn on your video so the audience can see you? We'll be starting with our next speak out. So to proceed, may we remind our audience to click on the English channel to access the English translation. Once again, the speak out is already beginning. For our
Check.
audience who wish to access the English channel, please click on the English interpretation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends.
Selamat Hari Perempuan Desa.
Happy International Rural Women's Day. I'm Widya, the Chief of Ceremony at the rural level as an organizer in the palm oil plantation area owned by the big landlord. I will convey the situation of the peasant and women who live in the midst of the big palm oil plantation monoculture owned by the comprador bourgeois and big landlord who are directly connected to the imperialist. Big landlord
Pertanian di salah satu kecamatan di Kabupaten Siak, Provinsi Riau.
Province of Riau, with width of 30,000 hectares for palm oil plantation. The land is obtained from natural forest, which have been dislodged.
Perkebunan besar ini adalah salah satu kontributor terbesar ekspor CPO Indonesia dan menjadikan Provinsi Riau sebagai eksportir CPO negara Republik Indonesia. Selain ekspor karet dan bubur kertas, minyak bumi, serta berbagai jenis mineral lainnya. Meskipun memiliki tanah sangat luas, hanya sedikit tenaga kerja yang bisa diserap oleh perkebunan besar ini. Sebagai perbandingannya, untuk satu keluarga di Indonesia dengan kelas tani sedang memiliki tanah 2 hektar, bisa memperkerjakan 4-5 orang keluarganya sendiri.
Of their own families. Meanwhile, this large plantation, as well as plantation owned by the other large landowners in Indonesia, only employs 200 peasants for every 1,000 hectares of plantation land. In other words, every 5 hectares of land can only recruit 1 peasant. Because of this, only a small populations of landless peasant and poor peasant around the plantation area can work on plantation owned by big landlords. Not because of the requirements, but because of the intensifications of exploitation and operation in plantations. It is not coincide that these large plantations are women peasants as the main workforce, especially maintaining and even planting, cleaning soil around the tree, fertilizing, spraying, herbicides, and pesticides are generally carried out by women peasants. In addition to being more painstaking in their work and more disciplined, their educations is relatively low compared to men and considered that easier to manage and not disobedient to the foreman. Women peasants are being able to work on plantation is a great thing in the midst of more intense work competition in rural areas. Usually they can work because they use plantations handsmen who are known for certain imbalance. The majority of the peasants around the plantation are peasants who work on land owned by small or classic landlords and rich peasants. Others are poor peasants who have very limited land and do not have the ability to produce. Because of that, they depend on selling energy. They're selling on labor. Even the working conditions on plantation are very bad and the wages are very low, including high risk. Being a peasant working on land is one hope to admit the difficulty of getting a job in rural areas. The women who work on they have left their homes before sunrise to join the morning parade at 6:30 a.m. after preparing meals and necessities for husbands and children. They work an average of 8 to 12 hours a day and go to work by their own vehicles, bringing their own work tools such as barrel cutting tools or, or others according to the type of daily work, wearing rubber boots, long sleeve clothing, and a hat to face the scorching sun. They are divided into work groups for certain types of work under a supervisory foreman with a predetermined daily work target. If they don't work because of ill, they must show a sick letter from the plantation doctor explained that they are getting ill. If they are menstruating or period, they must be able to prove that they are really menstruating. The company always suspect workers who leave work for reasons of menstrual leave. Often, the plantation party conducts direct checks by asking women peasants to remove their underwear and do the vaginal examination to prove whether they really are menstruating or not and cannot direct them to menstrual leave or not. The peasants are paid according to the number of days work on a basis of on a daily basis of wage. Formally, the company claims to provide its peasant wage based on the prevailing monthly minimum wage. If the in the 10, if in the 2020 minimum wage is 2.8 million rupiahs, then with 25 working days, peasant get 112,000 rupiahs per day. However, the peasant only have 20 working days maximum. Even generally only have 12 working days in a certain time of or reason. Because of this, peasants have never received a minimum wage in accordance with applicable state regulations. And of course, it is far from the relevant to the minimum living needs in rural areas where on average 50 to 75% of wage are used for rice. The daily needs of children, school, transportation are not handled properly, only relying on the helping hand of the close family. Likewise with
May we rem- may
the
we remind our
cause
speaker to wrap up
that
in two
were
minutes?
born because of it usually is increasingly widespread in the rural areas. The existence of large-scale plantation owned by league landlords has long received widespread resistance in terms of control of land belonging to the indigenous people or national minority group as well as land belonging to local peasants. And until now, with various fake partnerships, continues to try to expand the land, while the existing land, which is so fast, is very unproductive because it is planted, cared for, and harvested by a very traditional and backward means of production. There is no significant investment. The use of unskilled and the same capable workers from the time to time. Therefore, the main tendency is to expand the plantation land to increase production for export through the seizure or land grabbing from the small individual landowners to the peasant. The new law on job creation or omnibus law strengthened the position of land use right for big landowners and reduced the possibility for peasants, especially women peasants, to realize their dreams of producing on their own land. From the environmental aspect, the existence of land monoculture palm oil plantation have been proven to cause damage to forests and spring and even drain the rivers, swamps, and lakes, peatlands, and lakes. Various types of large mammals such as elephant and tigers lost their habitat. There is no trace of the fish that are consumed by the indigenous people or national minority group. The traditions of growing food crops such as dryland rice, maize, and sweet potatoes remains a story. There is no longer enough food production for sub-district, regencies, and even province. At the time when the Democratic Peasant Organization and Women's Organization, Seruni, tried to open limited food agricultural land on large-scale mining and large plantations, they were very enthusiastic about food production, including vegetables. The dream of co-productions of food crops and living the monocultures of export commodities is very strong. The aspiration to own the land and produce on their own land This large-scale plantation is one of the largest contributors to Indonesian CPO's export and makes Riau province as the largest export recipient in Indonesia. Export of the CPO is the main sources of dependency for the republics.
Again, Ma'am Triana. Ma'am Triana, apologies, we're running short of time. May we wrap up the speech?
Yeah, please. Sorry. The speaker won't able to speak in English. I will tell her. Wait. Masih kurang main.
Bagi anak-anak di desa, mereka sudah dikontrol orang tuanya dan beban kerja baru bagi buruh tani perempuan. Anak-anak tidak terhubung dengan anak-anak lainnya, tidak bisa bermain dan menyelesaikan masalah bersama-sama seperti biasanya mereka lakukan. Ini bukan soal ada smartphone atau ada data sebagaimana penyelesaian yang berusaha dilakukan negara, yang itu pun jauh dari merata dan adil bagi rakyat di pedesaan, apalagi bagi buruh tani kebun. Buruh tani yang sakit termasuk buruh tani perempuan bila sakit bergeletak begitu saja di balai pengobatan kebun seperti tandan buah segar sawit tanpa dokter. Sejak COVID-19, para dokter tidak masuk dan tidak memberikan layanan kesehatan. Seruni organisasi perempuan demokratis berusaha untuk memperjuangkan tuntutan taktis kaum tani perempuan dan para buruh tani perempuan melalui aksi kolektif yang berkelanjutan serta berusaha keras mempromosikan land reform sejati sebagai jalan keluar sesungguhnya berbagai masalah di pedesaan. Tantangan untuk membangkitkan,
mengorganisasikan dan menggerakkan buruh tani perempuan tidak saja datang dari pihak tuan tanah dan negaranya, tetapi juga dari berbagai aspek tradisional kemasyarakatan serta keagamaan. Akan tetapi, perkembangan kesadaran semakin baik dan organisasi terus meluas, terutama di tengah himpitan ekonomi parah dan peraturan COVID-19 yang semakin menindas. Di momentum Hari Perempuan Desa ini, kami mendesak beberapa tuntutan pada negara. 1. Perempuan desa harus memiliki kontrol atas tanah, input, dan jaminan harga setimpal untuk hasil produksi yang sesuai dengan tingkat keperluan hidup minimum di pedesaan. 2. Buruh tani perempuan harus mendapatkan upah kerja yang sama untuk pekerjaan yang sama dengan laki-laki dan setimpal dengan keperluan upah minimum. 3. Buruh tani perempuan harus mendapatkan jaminan keselamatan kerja yang memadai dan terbatas dari kekerasan seksual. 4. Perempuan desa harus memiliki kebebasan untuk berorganisasi dan menyampaikan pendapat untuk memperjuangkan hak-hak demokratis. 5. Perempuan desa harus memiliki kesempatan untuk belajar memiliki keterampilan yang lebih tinggi untuk hidup berkelanjutan dan fasilitas khusus bagi mereka yang hamil, melahirkan, dan memiliki anak. 6. Di tengah pandemi COVID-19, berbagai kemampuan hidup yang hilang dan tergerus karena isolasi dan pembatasan sosial harus memperoleh kompensasi tidak ditanggung dengan upah seadanya. 7. Berbagai jenis beban tambahan dalam keluarga termasuk biaya pendidikan dan kesehatan yang membengkak selama COVID-19 serta berbagai kenaikan keperluan hidup harus mendapatkan kompensasi dalam keadaan yang paling buruk. Ketika mereka harus berhenti bekerja karena pandemi, harus diberikan tanggungan penuh oleh tuan tanah dan negaranya. Bangkitlah perempuan desa, jayalah seruni, rakyat tertindas dan terhisap, Indonesia bersatulah. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Seruni. That was indeed motivational. Our sixth speaker is a farmer and the chairperson of the Women's Awareness Group based in Kabre District, Nepal. Let us give Ms. Nirmala Shrestha a warm welcome. This speak out will also be translated by Shanta Shrestha, immediate past president of the Beyond Beijing Committee, Nepal.
Video, please.
Ms. Nirmala, Ms. Shanta.
Okay. Namaste.
Nolina, I am here.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. May you try speaking?
Yeah.
Didi?
हजुर.
सुरु गर्नु दिदी?
गर्नुहोस्. अलिअलि बोलेर अनि त्यसपछि साइड बाइ साइड गर्नु पर्ला हुन्न?
हुन्छ. हजुरले म अलिकति भन्छु अनि हजुरले भनिदिनु हुन्छ हैन?
ल हजुर.
हजुर. नमस्ते. म निर्मला श्रेष्ठ, बनेपा नगरपालिका वडा नम्बर 4 बियोन्ड बेजिङ कमिटीको नेटवर्क मेम्बर र मेरो प्रारम्भिक संस्था महिला जागरण समूह उग्रचण्डी नाला.
Okay. This is Nirmala Shrestha from Banepa. I am the chair of the Women Awareness Groups Nepal and at the same time Beyond Beijing Committee member.
आज जुन यो ग्रामीण विश्व महिला दिवस मनाइरहँदाखेरि मैले आफ्ना कुराहरू केही राख्ने अवसर पाएँ। यसको लागि म हाम्रो आयोजक र बियोन्ड बेजिङ कमिटीलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु।
First of all, I would really like to thank for giving this opportunity to speak in this International Rulers Women Day to the organizer and the Beyond Beijing Committee.
यो जुन रुरल वुमेन को दिवसको दिनमा जुन एउटा गाउँमा बस्ने महिला दिदीबहिनीहरूको एउटा आवाजलाई अहिले जुन एउटा अवसर दिनुभएको छ, यसमा मैले मेरो महिला जागरण समूह एउटा बनेपा नगरपालिकामा रहेको र काठमाडौँबाट यो नेपालको राजधानी काठमाडौँबाट लगभग 26 किलोमिटर टाढा र लगभग अराउन्ड हाम्रो 30 किलोमिटर टाढा रहेको छ।
I'm speaking from my area, which is around 30 kilometers far from the center of the Kathmandu in the rural area where my organization, Women Awareness Group Nepal, is situated.
यो महिला जागरण समूह 2053 सालमा स्थापना गरेपछि हामीले महिला दिदीबहिनीहरूलाई विभिन्न प्रकारको शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य र आय आर्जन काममा हामीले कामहरू गर्दै गइरहेका छौं।
Since its establishment in 2053, we have been engaging rural women for the empowerment of the women in different income generation activities.
यस अन्तर्गत यो कोभिड-19 ले हामीलाई जुन एउटा महिला दिदीबहिनीहरूले लगभग 25 वर्ष अगाडिदेखि गर्दै आएका विभिन्न कामहरू मध्ये हामीले बचत तथा ऋण, त्यस्तै सिलाइ बुनाइ, लप्सी क्यान्डी, त्यस्तै गरेर अर्गानिक फर्टिलाइजर उत्पादन गर्ने कामहरू हामीले गरिरहेका थियौं।
The COVID has affected a lot in our activities like training to women on knitting and sewing, candy production, and other income generation activities, which we have been conducting since 25 years continuously.
इन्कम जेनरेटिङ प्रोग्राम अन्तर्गत हामीले जुन कामहरू गरिरहेका थियौं, अहिले यो कोभिडले गर्दाखेरि हाम्रो लप्सी क्यान्डीहरू बजारमा पुर्याउन सकेका छैनौं, हामीले मार्केटमा पुर्याउन सकेका छैनौं।
The income generation activities which we have been doing, one of the income generation activity is production of lopsy candy. Lopsy candy is a kind of fruit which they have planted, and from the fruit they are making a kind of chocolate. So this is called lopsy candy, and that lopsy is available only in Nepal, and from that, and they are producing a sweat. And this has been producing since that period of time, and because of the COVID, and it is disrupted.
जसले गर्दाखेरि हाम्रा दिदीबहिनीहरूले आफू यहाँ हामी 8-10 जना मिलेर कामहरू गरिरहेका थियौं, उहाँहरूको सामान बाहिर गएको छैन। यस्तै गरेर हाम्रो तरकारीहरू हामीले उत्पादन गर्थ्यौं, त्यो हामीले खोलामै फ्याक्नुपर्ने अवस्था आएको थियो।
And the product they have been producing, vegetables, lopsy candies, and fruits, that has now stopped, and it has not gone to the market. Because of that reason, the women are not able to generate the income, and which has affected a lot in their daily lives.
त्यस्तै गरेर हामीले हाम्रा दिदीबहिनीहरू, दाजुभाइहरू जसलाई चाहिँ अति धेरै यो तरकारी खेतीहरू गर्ने एरिया भएको हुनाले विषादीहरू अत्यन्त प्रयोग गर्ने कारणले गर्दा हाम्रो समूह मिलेर एउटा अर्गानिक फर्टिलाइजर फ्याक्ट्री हामीले खोलेका थियौं।
And they also have established open organic fertilizer production plant together with the people from men and women from that area to prevent the effect of chemical fertilizer in their health and well-being of the community as a whole.
जहाँ काम गर्ने धेरै जसो महिला दिदीबहिनीहरू पनि हुनुहुन्छ र उहाँहरू यो कोभिडको बीचमा पनि काम गर्ने सिलसिलामा दिनौ कमाएर दिनौ खानुपर्ने दिदीबहिनीहरू आउनुहुन्थ्यो र उहाँहरूले आफ्नो बालबच्चा पाल्नको लागि हामी काम गर्छौं भन्ने कुराहरू कोभिडको डर हुँदाहुँदै पनि काम गर्न आउँछौँ भन्दा पनि उहाँहरूलाई गाउँलेले आउने जाने क्रममा कोभिड सार्छन् भन्ने कुराहरू गरेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ उहाँहरूले आफ्नो काममा आउन जान पाउनु भएन र जसले गर्दाखेरि उहाँहरूको छोराछोरीलाई खुवाउनको लागि उहाँ आफू म मरे पनि मर्छु तर म काम गर्छु भनेर पनि सुख पाएन रोगले भन्दा पनि भोकले चाहिँ मर्ने डर उहाँहरूमा भयो
And in the plant women poor women are working, and due to the COVID these women, even though they really wanted to come to produce that organic fertilizer continuously, they are not, and that's their mobility is constrained because the rural women and rural people, they say that if you people are going there and you will get the COVID and that COVID will be infected us. And so because of that stigma, so they couldn't go to that plant, and because that plant is not running and their daily life have been affected and they couldn't feed their children and they couldn't send their children, and so they are in really dilemma and they are really starving actually. They are affected a lot and they are really rather than from the COVID, they are suffering from the hunger and hungry. They are really hungry because they couldn't earn from that plant.
यसरी हाम्रा दिदीबहिनीहरू जुन सुरुदेखि नै महिनामा 5 रुपैयाँ जम्मा गरेर एउटा सेभिङ गर्ने अनि उहाँहरूले आफ्नो उत्पादनहरू गरेको कुरालाई हामीले कलेक्सन गर्ने मार्केट पुर्याउने कामहरू जुन गरिरहेका थियौँ अहिले बचत गर्न सक्ने क्षमता पनि छैन स्वास्थ्यको लागि पनि उहाँहरूले ध्यान दिन पाउनु भएन र आफ्नो आय आर्जनका बाटाहरू ठप्प भइरहेको अवस्था छ
Miss Nirmala, Miss Shanta.
Yes,
hello.
Please. Yes.
Before we proceed, may we gently remind you to wrap up the speak out in 2 minutes?
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Because of this reason, I just forgot what she has said. Yeah, the saving they have been generating. Generating all those activities have been affected. अब डिमान्डतिर भन्नु होला
अब यसमा म अलिकति यो असरलाई चाहिँ हामीले न्यूनीकरण गर्नको लागि यी कामहरू गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ नम्बर 1 कोरोनाको बारेमा यथार्थ जानकारी
I'm going to say what should be done, basically the 3 points भन्नुस्
कोरोनाको बारेमा सबैलाई यथार्थ जानकारी दिनुपर्ने जरुरी छ
Therefore, the first and foremost, what I really request is to really need to give about a proper information and knowledge about how corona affect the people, so that they will not be stigmatized. Rural women will not be stigmatized to continue their work.
त्यसै गरेर उत्पादित सामग्रीहरू बजारमा व्यवस्थापन गरिदिनु पर्ने जरुरी पनि देखिन्छ
And also the second, whatever the production we have, and that should be continued without stopping. So the government and the local government and all others should really make a provision to continue their production, so that their life will not be affected because of non-income generation. Ajay.
त्यसै गरेर अन्तिममा चाहिँ तत्कालै अप्ठ्यारोमा परेका हाम्रा त्यस्ता दिदीबहिनीहरूलाई हामीले केही यथाशक्य सहयोगहरू गर्नुपर्ने देखिन्छ
And the third and very most important, I really like to urge is the support who are affected by such activities. Because of those activities should be supported first and foremost urgently, to really not affect their daily life and not affect their families. And that's all from my side. Ajay. Thank you.
धन्यवाद मौका दिनु भएकोमा
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Ms. Nirmala. Thank you, Ms. Shantha. Before we proceed with the question and answer portions, we will now move on to more video testimonials from women in Nepal. These testimonials are brought to us by our friends in WOREC.
यो अहिले पुरुषहरूलाई यो रोग यो अफिस जानु पाएको होइन, घरमा बस्नु परेको छ। महिलालाई चाहिँ काम ठप भइरहेको छ। तरकारी महँगी भएर किनेर खान सकेको होइन। लुगाफाकी लाग्दैन पनि रोग लाग्यो कि भन्ने शङ्का हुन्छ। कतै होइन अब जानु पाएको होइन महिलाहरू होइन, अब कतै अब जानु काम हुन्छ नि त जाने, अब त्यतिखेर जानु पाएको होइन। अब घरबाट निस्किनु नपाएपछि खानेकुरा होइन अब घरबाट निस्किनु नपाएपछि अब कमाएर खाने मान्छे सरकारले के अरे कसरी हुन्छ होइन, अब त्यो खानेकुराहरूलाई गरिदिनु पर्यो।
यो महामारीको कारणले गर्दाखेरि हामी महिलाहरूलाई चाहिँ धेरै समस्याहरू परेको छ। घरमा पहिले बालबच्चाहरू स्कुल जान्थ्यो भने, श्रीमानहरू अफिसतिर जान्थ्यो भने, आफ्नो अर्काका काममा व्यस्त हुन्थ्यो भने, अहिले यो महामारीको कारणले गर्दा, कोरोना महामारीको कारणले गर्दाखेरि सम्पूर्णलाई रेखदेख गर्नु परेको छ र हामी महिलाहरू कहीँ पनि जान सकेका छैनौँ। कोरोनाको महामारीले गर्दाखेरि हाम्रो समुदायमा र हाम्रो घरमा स्वास्थ्य चाहिँ राम्रो लिन पाएका छैनौँ होइन। घरमा जति पनि बालबच्चाहरू छन् तिनीहरूलाई स्कुल पठाइन्थ्यो भने स्कुल पठाउँदाखेरि त्यति टेन्सन हुँदैन थियो, त्यति अहिले त्यो तनावहरू पनि घरमा बोक्नु परेको छ। यो अवस्थामा चाहिँ हामीलाई सरकारले स्वास्थ्य सम्बन्धी केही जानकारी दिएको भए चाहिँ, परामर्श दिएको भए चाहिँ हामीलाई राम्रो हुन्थ्यो र साथै कृषिको लागि चाहिँ बिउजन चाहिँ राम्रो उपलब्ध गराइदिए चाहिँ राम्रो हुन्थ्यो होला। यस्तो महामारीमा हामीले बिउ पाएका छैनौँ।
कोभिड-19ले चाहिँ हामी महिलाहरूलाई विशेष गरेर स्वास्थ्यमा अवसर गरेको छ। घरबाट कुनै बाहिर गएर काम गरेर खाने महिलाहरूलाई चाहिँ धेरै अवसर गरिरहेछ। यो स्वास्थ्यमा भनौँ न डेलिभरीहरू हुनु पर्यो भने पनि स्वास्थ्यसँग पुग्न नसक्ने अवस्था भएकोले धेरै समस्या भोग्नु परेको छ हामी महिलाहरूले। हामी महिलाहरूको लागि चाहिँ विशेष गरेर अब भनौँ न घरमै चाहिँ गर्न पाए हुन्थ्यो जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ। घरमै स्वास्थ्य सुरक्षाहरू घरमै दिन पाए हुन्थ्यो, किनभने हामीलाई घरको पारिवारिक समस्याले पनि सताइरहेको हुन्छ, उता रोगले पनि सताइरहेको हुन्छ। त्यसले गर्दा घरमै चाहिँ हामीलाई सुरक्षा दिएदेखि हुन्थ्यो भन्ने लाग्छ।
Once again, we would like to thank WOREC Nepal for the video testimonials. Now, to give our audience the opportunity to know more about the situation, we are once again inviting Ms. Widya, Ms. Triana, and Ms. Nirmala to answer queries from our dear listeners. Before we begin with the live questions, there's already a question from our audience that I would like to address. This is for Seruni. The question is, can you please share the impact of the omnibus law in Indonesia? Do you think the protest will help to stop its implementation? I will read the question once again. Can you please share the impact of the omnibus law in Indonesia? Do you think the protest will help to stop its implementation? Anyone from Seruni can answer the question? Thank you.
Yes, me, Triana, will answer the question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Saro, for the question. About the omnibus law, that recently being a hot issue in Indonesia, our view is this law is clearly a new effort to block the immediate demands of the people for genuine agrarian reform and national industry, as well as movement to liberate the Indonesian nation and people from the domination of imperialism. The application of this law will also explicitly deprive basic economy rights such as wages, elimination of the compensation of employment termination or layoff, shortening time to obtain permits for imperialists and their accomplices to do business in Indonesia, accelerating land grabbing in the name of infrastructure development and development projects, and facilitating the freely acceptance of foreign workers to work in Indonesia. The whole scheme of land grabbing and wages under the guise of employment and development is fully supported by investment productive capital and loan capital belonging to the imperialists and is accumulating again for imperialist wealth, especially US-led world imperialism. Other mass action and campaign can stop this for implementation of this law. I think if the action and campaign can coordinate broadly across Indonesia in many areas, especially in big cities and also rural, I think we can stop this implementation of this law. But for now, the action and campaign and the protests just massive in Jakarta and other big cities in Indonesia. But we believe that the movement of the people cannot be stopped because of this issue. I think that's all from me, Nolin. Thank you.
Thank you, Triana. Apart from the question raised a while ago, do any of our audience members want to ask questions? Again, if you want to speak live, you may use the raise hand function or you may turn on your mics so that our speakers can hear your queries. You may also address your questions to the Zoom chat and I will read them for you. We have another question from our Facebook account. Follow-up question to Ma'am Triana for the Omnibus Law. What are the particular effects of the Omnibus Law, if any, specifically on women? What is the role of women, including rural women, in the current protests in Indonesia?
Yeah, the specific impact of this law to women, the government directly kick out the regulation for the women, if women need to have menstrual leave, they can get it under this omnibus law. So if the women also giving birth, she can get the leave, some same as like menstrual leave. So for the specific impact to women, the women's right is being cut off under this omnibus law. That's the specific impact to the women. And sorry, Nolin, the second question is?
All right, I'll repeat the question. What is the role of women? Yes.
Okay.
Including rural women in the current protest.
Saroni also being part of the action and campaign and protests, especially in urban area. But in rural, we also holding discussion, education to the masses, to the people, especially our members, so they can have a perspective about this law and what the reason or our perspective on this law and why we reject this law to be implemented in Indonesia. So in the rural, maybe we have a limitation. We just educate the women and also people from other sector and giving understanding and a view what is our perspective of this law. But in urban areas such as in Jakarta, and other big cities in Indonesia, Seruni also being part of the protest. Yeah.
Thank you, Mom Triana, for answering that question. I think we can accommodate one more question from our audience. Would anyone like to ask or manifest anything for this Speak Out? Once again, you may type the questions in the Zoom chat or you may manifest them by unmuting. All right, we have one question. May the audience member speak out her query?
Hello?
May Muhammad Ali Sokran, yes. You may address your question.
Okay, do you hear me, Miss?
Yes, you may be heard.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Miss Triana. It's about omnibus law. Okay, in Indonesia, last year we know about RKUHP and it's a law of RKUHP and a law of corruption as well. And we see there are a lot of mass doing protests on the road, but there is nothing changes. Although people doing protests around on the road. So my question is there any another way to restrict the the omnibus law? Because I think if we, although there is a lot of people doing protests on the way, but there is nothing changed from the government, and the government keeping the keep running the law. So what's another way in order we can stop the law?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Nolin, can I start to answer the question?
Yes, you may start.
Okay. We need system change. That's why we here in rural area organize more people, organize more women into organizations. We don't believe in the current system that that already exists. That's why we need system change. That's why we here in rural area. And why we here in the rural? Because 65% of population in Indonesia are living in rural area. They are in the backward agricultural system. That's why we need to change that situations. That's why we here to liberate the peasant who oppressed by the system that exists today. Because Indonesia is still in a semi-feudal and semi-colonial system of the state. So that's society, sorry. So that's why we need to change that situation. We need system change. That's why we here in rural area to liberate the sorry, the majority of the population of Indonesia. That's it, Nolin.
Thank you. We'd like to remind our audience that this will be the last question for this round of Q&A. Thank you for our speakers. But now we'll proceed with the next Speak Out session. Now we go on to our next speaker. She is a farmer practicing agroecology from the Monaragala district, Sri Lanka. She is a member of the Vikalpani National Women's Federation. A warm welcome to Ms. Benita. Her Speak Out will be translated by Ms. Chatu Sewandi, Project Coordinator of Vikalpani. To access the simultaneous translation, please click on the interpretation button beside the Q&A button. Once you press on the interpretation, kindly click on the French channel to access the translation. Thank you very much.
Hello again.
Hello, ma'am. You may be heard. You may begin.
Hello, đang kata ano? Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Ganda kino na?
Sudu.
Hello?
Hello, ma'am. You may begin your speak out.
Kata karan kita kaya ni. Hello? My name is Sunita Nilayanti.
Yeah.
I'm a competitor.
May we request our audience to click on the English channel to
My name is Vinita and I'm from Cambodia. So I am the chairman of Vikalpani National Women's Federation.
අපිට බලපාපු ආකාරය පිළිබඳව තමයි ලංකාවට අපි කියන්න කැමති විශාල වශයෙන් අපේ ගොවිතැනට බලපෑව කියලා.
So we would like to tell you that the COVID situation affected on the agriculture sector of our country. So at that situation, a lot of our day-to-day works and also agricultural works were halted. Then we face a lot of situations where we can't sell our products, especially the products which are produced in village level. So we were faced a lot of difficulties in transport those products to the local markets and urban markets. Therefore, we face with the market problem, the access to the market. So sometimes our farmers, they face with a lot of issues, the mental issues because of the family problem. So sometimes the farmers are allowed to go to their farmland.
හේන් වල වගා කරපු දේවල් ආපහු අරන් එන්න පාරේ බහලා යන්න පුළුවන් උනේ ඒ අයට විතරයි. ඉතින් ඒ අවස්ථාවේ අපේ අනිත් අයට ඒ අවස්ථාව ලැබුණේ නෑ ඇත්තටම. ගම්බද මේ කුෂ කාර්මික කටයුතු වල නියලිච්ච අයට කන්න බොන්න සාමාන්‍යයෙන් තිබුණත්
that situation. So there's a problem with the access of to the farmland and markets.
ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ වෙලාවේ ගොවියා තමයි ගොඩාක්ම පහළට වැටුනේ.
Yeah.
පාසල් ළමුන්ට පවා ඉතින් මේ පාසල් ළමයිට ගොඩක්ම බලපෑවා. ඒ කියන්නේ පාසල් ටික වසා දමන අවස්ථාවේ මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පවා
So school children and also of our children, they also couldn't go to the schools and for the education purpose. There are some issues with access to the facilities in this situation. Therefore, we face a lot of economic issues because of all these backgrounds and such things.
කුස්කාල්මික කටයුතු කරගන්න අවස්ථාව තිබුණත් ඒ බීජ සම්පත් ඔක්කොම ඒ ගොවියා ගාව තිබ්බ නිසා ගොවියා
But we could, as a farmers, small scale farmers, we could overcome this situation since we had our own seeds and our own planting materials. So we engage in small scale agroecology because in Vikalpani Women's Federation, we gave a lot of technical and also the knowledge that they need to engage in agroecology, especially without using pesticides. Therefore, all of us and most of the people in our area, in our organizations, practice agroecology, and we had small scale farmland. Even though we had some issues with the money, but we shared our fruits and vegetables with each others who are facing problems with issues, especially with the food issues. So therefore, we didn't much, as a small scale farmers, we didn't much felt that loss of issues. So I'm Chandra Heva Galgi from Vikalpani National Women's Federation. I'm the national coordinator. So COVID situation faced in a vast level to our country. As economically, we face a lot of issues, especially the women, they've affected a lot of issues since they are women, especially so from that the women who are engaging in ecological agriculture and agriculture sector face a lot of issues, especially with the transportation issues. We had issues with the access to the facilities and resources, and there are some issues with selling the products of the uh, farmers because we cultivate 2 seasons. So government allows us to use the private transportation system, though since we are small scale farmers and also poorest people in the country, we have no access to the private transportation. So since but the other thing is access to the organic access to the input and agricultural inputs. So even though we have a practice and to conserve the seeds we need, we could manage. But there are some issues with the farmers who used to buy the seeds from the market because of the Lexus access. So now it is kind of the second wave is here of COVID. So it is quite risky than the first wave because all the country quite shocked because so some areas have been locked down recently. But we are risk to engage in our day-to-day activities and a lot of women who are in the garment sector. Now the new cluster has been identified from a garment factory where a lot of women are working. So they are facing a lot of issues because the other thing is the women who are working in the state sector, they are most vulnerable people from this kind of epidemics. So the small scale farmers and also the poorest sector of the country, they are facing a lot of disadvantages because they can't go to the farmers market or their markets, and they can't access and they can't sell what they produce. So there are some issues with the issues with the spreading of this COVID situation to the students who are engaged in A-level and other exams. So especially, as I said before, like the people who are dependent on this agrochemical and also fertilizers which are imported to Sri Lanka, they are facing a lot of issues and problems because they can't engage in their day-to-day activities and day-to-day agricultural practices, depending on the inputs, agricultural inputs. So we, as a people who are engaging in agroecology, we could overcome those risks and challenges which are faced by other farmers who are engaged in chemical fertilizers and such things. So now we have some resources, the minimum resources that we need to replant in our lands. So what we believe is this, because of the local agriculture and because we admire the food sovereignty from ourselves, then we can minimize these risks and challenges. So we think like food sovereignty can be assured through the system which promote the localized food systems and localized practices.
Before we proceed, may we remind our speakers to wrap up in 2 minutes?
Okay.
ලංකාවේ දැන් රජය පාර්ලිමේන්තුව පළාත් සභා ප්‍රාදේශීය සභා ඉද රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන් බලධාරීන් මේ කියන දේ තමයි කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මිනිසුන් ලොකු අපහසුතාවයකට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. රජය
දැන් ඉවර කරන්න කියන්නේ. දැන් ඉවර කරන්න.
ඉතින් මේ අපිට මේ දැන් අතාවක් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ COVID-19 ගැන කතා කරන්නට අවස්ථාවක් ලබා දීම.
So we thank you to raise our voice, since we are a organization and organization work with the rural communities. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity to share.
Thank you, Ms. Benita. Thank you, Ms. Chatu, and to all the speakers who shared their experiences. To give the final speak out, we welcome the Chief Executive of Jagonari, a group fighting for women's empowerment based in Barisal, Bangladesh. Let's extend a round of applause for Ms. Hosne Arahasi. This speak out will also be translated. Ms. Hosne Arahasi, are you here?
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
I am Hosne Arahasi, Chief Executive Jagonari. Jagonari, that's in Bangladesh, South Borguna. আমি আসলে একটু বাংলায় বলতে চেষ্টা করব। আমার পাশে আমার কলিগ আছে, উনি আপনাদেরকে ইংরেজি বলে হেল্প করবে। আমি বরগুনাতে বরগুনা আসলে বাংলাদেশের সর্বদক্ষিণের একটা জেলা এবং এটি খুবই ডিজাস্টার প্রোন এরিয়া। বঙ্গোপসাগরের বুক চিরে জেগে ওঠা একটা দ্বীপ বা চর আসলে এই বরগুনাটি। আপনারা জানেন যে বাংলাদেশের আসলে কোস্টাল কয়েকটা জোন আছে, তার মধ্যে একটা কোস্টাল এরিয়া। সেই কোস্টাল এরিয়ারই সর্বদক্ষিণে বরগুনাতে আমি যে অর্গানাইজেশনে কাজ করি, সেটির নাম জাগোনারি। জাগনারি ফর জাগনারি আসলে ফুল মিনিংসটা যদি আমরা বলতে চাই, ফাইটিং ফর ওমেন এম্পাওয়ারমেন্ট, এটার একটি স্লোগান আছে যেটি ফাইটিং ফর ওমেন এম্পাওয়ারমেন্ট, এটিকে আমরা চেনার জন্য এটি বলে থাকি। এবং বরগুনা প্রতি বছরই ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ বলেন, ডিজাস্টারে বলেন, আমরা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়ে থাকি। আমাদের এখানে সর্বদক্ষিণের জেলা বঙ্গোপসাগরের পাশে যেহেতু, সে কারণেই সঙ্গত কারণেই এখানে আমাদের লাইভলিহুড বেশিরভাগটাই মাছের উপর নির্ভর করে, এবং এখানে দরিদ্র মানুষের সংখ্যা খুব বেশি পরিমাণ। এবং বাংলাদেশের সর্বশেষ জেলা যে ঘোষিত হয়েছে সেটি এই বরগুনা জেলা। সেই হিসাবে আমি যদি বলি, বরগুনার মানুষ আসলে অনেকটা পশ্চাৎপর হওয়ার কারণে অ্যাওয়ারনেসের জায়গাগুলো এখানে খুব ভালো অবস্থায় নাই। এখানে প্রতিনিয়ত আসলে আর্লি ম্যারেজ বলেন, নারীর স্বাস্থ্য সেবা বলেন, এই জায়গাগুলো ভালনারেবল অবস্থা আছে, এগুলো খুব ইনক্রিজ করেনি। তো এর মধ্যে আমাদের কোভিড হয়ে যাওয়া আরো ভালনারেবল হয়ে গেছে। জাগনারি আসলে 98 সন থেকে বাংলাদেশের মহিলা বিষয়ক এবং এনজিও ব্যুরোর রেজিস্ট্রেশন নিয়ে কাজ করে। জাগনারি মোটা দাগে যদি বলি আমি, এডুকেশন, হেলথ, লাইভলিহুড, ডিজাস্টার এবং ওমেন্স রাইটসটা সর্বাগ্রে প্রায়োরিটি দিয়ে কাজ শুরু করে। এ পর্যায়ে এসে জাগনারি আসলে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ জোন বা ডিজাস্টার জোন হওয়ার কারণে ডিজাস্টারের উপরে যথেষ্ট এক্সপিরিয়েন্স আছে, এবং তাদের কোর প্রোগ্রাম হলো ওমেন্স রাইটস এবং জেন্ডার।
May we ask the Good afternoon, ma'am. May we ask the translator to move closer to the mic so our audience can hear you?
Good afternoon, everyone. From Bangladesh, this is Albert. I'm trying to support my chief executive. Basically, Jaganari was established in 1998 to ensure women rights. And you know that Borduna district is at the southwestern part of the coastal areas, and it is basically an island of the Bay of Bengal. And when Jaganari started with women rights, disaster risk reduction, many other activities, and Jaganari has many programs, but at the same time, since March this year, the COVID-19 actually hampered the total life of the women community here.
Thank you, Albert. আমি যদি কোভিডের পরে কথা বলতে চাই, আজকের অবশ্য গ্রামীণ নারী দিবসও, সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা এই প্রথমেই আমি গ্রামীণ নারীদের অবদানের কথা স্বীকৃতি দিতে চাই। বাংলাদেশে আসলে 80% মানুষই গ্রামে বাস করে, সেক্ষেত্রে 80% মানুষের অংশই নারী। সেই আজকে গ্রামীণ নারী দিবস আমরা এটিকে বরগুনায় সেলিব্রেট করেছি, এবং আজকের এই দিবসকে সামনে রেখে আমার বলা যে আসলে আমাদের গ্রামের নারীরা এখনো স্বাস্থ্য সেবার জায়গাতে খুব ভালনারেবল অবস্থায় আমরা অবস্থান করছি, এবং ওমেন্স রাইটসের জায়গাটা আমরা আসলে অত বড় শক্ত জায়গায় বুঝতে পারি না। তার মধ্যে কোভিড এবং আমফান দুটি আমাদের আসলে ডিজাস্টার হয়েছে, দুটির ধরনটা দুই ধরনের ছিল। কোভিডের পর থেকে আসলে লকডাউনের কারণে আমাদের এই জানেন যে সারা বাংলাদেশেই লকডাউন ছিল, তার অংশ হিসেবে বরগুনার মানুষও লকডাউনে পড়ে আসলে এখন আরো দরিদ্রতার জায়গায় চলে গেছে। এখানে মানুষ, এখানে যেহেতু ডিজাস্টার কোন এরিয়া, সে কারণে বেশিরভাগ মানুষই ডিজাস্টারের কারণে বড় শহরে গিয়া তারা মাইগ্রেট হয়, এবং সেসব শহরে গিয়ে তারা কাজ করে। কোভিডের কারণে সেসব মানুষ চাকরিচ্যুত হইয়া তারা চলে আসছে আমাদের এলাকায়, এবং এখানে একমাত্র মাছ এবং কিছু ফসল ছাড়া বাকি কিছু নাই। এবছর শীতের ফসলটি আমাদের এলাকার কৃষকেরা আসলে বিক্রি করতে পারে নাই, কৃষিখাতের ফসল খেতেই নিমজ্জিত হয়েছে। সেক্ষেত্রে ফিনান্সিয়াল জায়গাটায় আমাদের অঞ্চলের মানুষ খুব আরো খারাপ অবস্থায় পৌঁছেছে, এবং আমফান হওয়ার কারণে আমফানে আর একটা বড় ধরনের আঘাত খাওয়াতে মানুষের ঘর বাড়ি এবং আপনার যে পুকুরের মাছ ছিল এগুলো মানুষ নিঃস্ব হয়ে গেছে। এই দুটি মিলিয়ে আমাদের বরগুনার অবস্থা আসলে ঘুরে দাঁড়ানোই খুব কষ্টের জায়গা হয়ে গেছে এবং নারীদের আরো খারাপ অবস্থায় পৌঁছে গেছে। যেমন যেসব মানুষ পুরুষরা বাইরে গিয়ে চাকরি করতো তারা এখন চলে আসছে, সেক্ষেত্রে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে হাই ইনকাম পরিবারের খুবই খারাপ অবস্থা এবং শিশুদের এবং নারীদের অনেক জায়গায় আমরা পুষ্টিহীনতা দেখতে পাই, যে আসলে খাবারের অভাব হলে নারীদের ঘাড়ে গিয়ে পড়ে, শেষ পর্যন্ত নারীর ঘাড়ে যখন পড়ে তার দুগ্ধ দানকারী সন্তানদের ঘাড়েও পড়ে, মা না খেতে পারলে সন্তানের দুধ ঠিক মতো আসে না। সেসব জায়গাগুলো আমাদের এখানে খুব মারাত্মক রকম ধারণ করেছে খাবারের অভাবের কারণে। এবং পাশাপাশি আপনার যদি আমরা বলতে চাই যে নারীদের উপরে ভায়োলেন্সের যে এফেক্টটা সেটাও বেশি হচ্ছে, কারণ পুরুষেরা কাজ করতেছে না, তারা বাইরে যারা কাজ করতো এখানে চলে আসে। একজন টাকায় রিক্সা চালাতো, সেও কিন্তু রিক্সা চালাতে না পেরে এখন বরগুনাতে আসে। যদি আগস্টের পরের দিকে একটু লিবারেল হয়েছে, তা সে জায়গাটা তো আসলে আয়ের জায়গাটা বাড়ে নাই। এবং এই পরিবারগুলো কোভিডের কারণে যে ক্ষতিটা হয়েছে, যে ঋণটা হয়েছে, সে ঋণটা কিন্তু এখনো কাভার করতে পারে নাই এবং এখনো মানুষের দুরবস্থা চলছে এবং আমফানের কারণে আরো খারাপ অবস্থা করছে।
What she said that since the COVID started, the total country was under lockdown, and since August it is a bit relaxed, but most of the people who were working in the garments in the capital, pulling rickshaws in the capital, they came back home, and whenever they were at home, the workload of the women community increased, and the rate of violence against women increased. The income decreased, and in between, in May 21, there was a very super cyclone Amphan hit. So this double disaster made the people very distressed, and the main vulnerable community is the women, because they have to be at the home. Even the lactating mothers, they do not have enough food to take. For that, the child is becoming affected. And the health system, in our villages, the health system is not that good. So they have to come to the sub-district or in the districts. And as the accessibility, the movement, mobility of the people are decreased, so those are being affected. So this is in a nutshell.
আমি আরেকটি জায়গায় বলতে চাই যে আমাদের নারীর স্বাস্থ্য জায়গাটা, আমরা বাংলাদেশে আমাদের ইউনিয়ন পর্যায় পর্যন্ত কমিউনিটি ক্লিনিক বা ARWC আছে, বাট এটা আমরা আসলে এখনো ওইভাবে ফাংশনিং করতে পারি না। এবং আমি শুরুতেই বলেছি যে বরগুনা সর্বদক্ষিণের একটা জেলা, এখানকে নারীরা নিজের চাহিদাটা নিজের নিজে পূরণ করার জন্য তাদের আসলে ওই দক্ষতা বা ওই অ্যাওয়ারনেসটাও তাদের মধ্যে নাই। সে কারণে এই কোভিড বা আমফান মিলিয়ে, এই দক্ষিণাঞ্চল মিলিয়ে আসলে আমাদের এখানে নারী স্বাস্থ্য সেবার জায়গাটাও অনেকটা পিছিয়ে আছে। তারপরেও জাগনারী আসলে হেলথ নিয়ে যথেষ্ট কাজ করে। আমাদের শহরের উপকূল বা কিছু কিছু পকেটে আমরা তাদেরকে অ্যাওয়ারনেস করেছি। কিছু আমাদের বিভিন্ন অনেক কাজ করতে গিয়ে কমিটি গঠন করা আছে, অ্যাকশন কমিটি। সেই অ্যাকশন কমিটি বা আমাদের যে আমরা যে কাজগুলো করেছি সেই অঞ্চলগুলোতে আসলে কিছুটা অ্যাওয়ারনেস হয়েছে, তারা সরকারের সেবাগুলোকে নিয়ে কথা বলছেন, যে জায়গাটা আমাদের তৈরি হচ্ছে। বাট আমাদের কোভিডের পরে আমাদের যে ভালনারেবিলিটি, এটা আমাদের জন্য খুব কষ্টের একটি জায়গা তৈরি হয়েছে, খুব কষ্টের একটি জায়গা তৈরি হয়েছে। এবং আমাদের শিশু বলেন, নারীরা বলেন, আমরা এই জায়গাটাতে খুব ভালো নাই। এবং জাগনারী আসলে কোস্টাল বেল্টে কাজ করে। আপনারা জানেন যে বাংলাদেশে 19টা জেলা আসলে কোস্টালের, যারা প্রতি বছর একাধিকবার রেজিস্টারের যে কোনো ধরনের লন্ডভন্ড করে দেয় এবং সেটি প্রতিনিয়ত আছে। এবং পাশাপাশি আমাদের এই কোভিডের জন্য আমাদের এলাকায় নারী নির্যাতনের হার 3 গুণ বেড়েছে। আমাদের তালতলি উপজেলার একটা তালতলি উপজেলার 3টা গ্রামে আমরা একটা কোভিড শুরু হওয়ার আগে এবং পরে তুলনামূলক করে দেখেছি যে নারী নির্যাতনের সংখ্যা 3 গুণ বেড়ে গেছে। যেহেতু তারা স্বামীরা বা সন্তানেরা বাইরে থাকে, তারা চলে আসছে, অভাব এমিলি আসলে আমাদের অবস্থা ভালো নাই। এখন এই বছর যদি এই বর্ষার মৌসুমে ফসল ভালো হয় তাহলে হয়তো বা কিছুটা এই ওভারকাম করার জায়গায় পৌঁছবে, ঘরে অন্তত দুটো চাল হবে। কিন্তু মানুষ যে দেন হচ্ছে, মানুষ যে ঋণী হয়ে গেছে, এই জায়গাটা আসলে পূরণ হবার নয়। এবং আমরা আরো একটা জিনিস আমরা বুঝতে পারতেছি, দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে মানুষের শিশু জন্মদানের জায়গাটাও আসলে বৃদ্ধি পাচ্ছে এবং নারীরা স্বাস্থ্যগত জায়গায়ও খুব ভালো নেই। থ্যাংক ইউ অ্যালবার্ট।
So
Sir, before
the final words she said that in our villages there is community clinic which is not very much functional. Number two, what she mentioned that we made a survey before COVID and in between COVID that the violence against women increased 3 times more, and at the same time childbirth has increased because the husbands are at home, and all these burden are actually on the women. So Tagonari as an organization is trying to aware these people. We have distributed hygiene kits, we have done miking, we went to houses with leaflets, but those are actually a drop of water in the ocean. So still today we are working and we are channelizing the government funds for the social safety net program. So this way Jagonari is still working. We still have projects to support the vulnerable community, especially the vulnerable women. So thank you from our part. If you have any question, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your words, Ms. Hosne. Now we are down to our last round of question and answers. We highly encourage the audience to take this opportunity to learn from our speakers. Before we move on with the live Q&A, I would like to use this opportunity to ask 2 questions coming from our audience. Anyone from all the panelists that we've had can answer the questions. Firstly, what actions are being done to prevent domestic violence during this pandemic? Again, what actions are being done to prevent domestic violence during this pandemic? Once again, any of our panelists can answer the question posed by the audience. Our speakers from Bangladesh, Nepal, India, the Philippines can answer the query.
Um,
All right, so we'll proceed to our next question. Our next question is for anybody to answer as well. What is the most unforgettable struggle that women in the field have experienced? Again, what is the most unforgettable struggle that women in the field have experienced? Any of the speakers can answer the question. Yes, ma'am, you may. You may be heard rin po. Yes.
in the not only in the COVID situation, but especially in the COVID situation, since the husbands are there in the homes. So several news were reported like domestic violence cases are high, like the people have come to the police, and they have put several complaints. So in Sri Lanka, there is, as I heard, like there is no special measures was taken to resolve this issue, but there was some kind of in the media and also in television there was some kind of discussions were broadcasted by the organizations which are working for the women's right and working against domestic violence. But in Sri Lanka, there is a something called women's desk, which was practice in divisional and also in every police stations where women who are facing to domestic violence, they can come and do a complaints against that. And there are some specific laws and rules and regulations. So, but in Sri Lanka, like specifically, there was nothing, no any regulation was enacted during the COVID situation. So the other thing is, like you asked, what kind of a challenge which are faced by the women in in struggle, right? Is that
Yes, ma'am.
so?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
yeah, since there are okay, can you see me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we can see you.
Okay, so I would like to share, since I'm working with these women's organizations for several years, and I would like to share some experiences and on behalf of Vikalpani. So since we are women, and the women who works as human right and sometimes environmental right defenders, we face a lot of challenges in a defenders mode, and also as the people who are in the front line of these community struggles. So I would like to share some experiences which were faced by the Chandra, because one of her struggle against these massive sugarcane plantations in Sri Lanka. So she, as I heard, she has to lay down before the tractors and backhoe and such machines to stop that their acquiring of those lands and such things. So since we are women, we face a lot of threats. So and also some threats are so much they have since those threats, because we are women. So the mechanism for face and to cope against those threats and such things are quite not much strong. So sometimes, since even though in these decks you are going to complaints and such things, again those things, then the officers try to resolve those things through discussions, and they are not trying to bring this message to upper level of the authorities, and such things are there. So in the ground level, because of the facilities and because of the resources, those women face a lot of issues, and the voices and the platforms for raise this voice is not wider, and they are not accepted by some governmental authorities. So those are the challenges which are faced by the women, especially in these COVID situations. Once they're coping with the struggles, so it is women who are mostly vulnerable, because they are the people who need to take care of the day-to-day activities and the family problems. So then because of these limitations, they face a lot of issues. So that are some experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Shatu, for your insights. Our other panelists can also share their experiences or testimonials. If you wish to share, may we request you to unmute the mic and turn on the cameras. Would anyone else like to share about the question posed by our audience? Number one, what actions are being done to prevent domestic violence during this pandemic, and number two, what is the most unforgettable struggle that women in the field have experienced? If there are none, we can also entertain one more question for this round. Again, our audience may type in their questions through the Zoom chat box. If we have no more, then we will be wrapping up this segment. Thank you very much for your insightful queries. Unfortunately, we have reached the end. While we are saddened by our program's closing, we would also like to welcome everybody that participated for this event. To finally conclude this affair, we will have with us the Executive Director of Pan Asia Pacific, an organization based in Penang, Malaysia. PANAP works to eliminate pesticides and uphold agroecology, food sovereignty, and gender justice. PANAP is a member of the steering committee of ARWC. Let us all welcome Ms. Roheni Rengam.
Thank you, Nolene. Thank you, everyone. Happy Rural Women's Day. Happy Rural Women's Day. I just want to quickly just share something very small. I just wanted to say that we just got news this morning that Switzerland has come out with a law to ban exports of banned pesticides. And that's amazing because Syngenta, which is the producer of paraquat, is based in Switzerland. And this is a big success for the campaigns of all of us in terms of stopping the exports of paraquat from Switzerland. And we hope that it's EU-wide and it's, and that becomes a law everywhere where exports of banned products should not be produced and exported. But this is good news. And we know that Sri Lanka, because of the Kalpani, who campaigned against paraquat, it's banned in Sri Lanka. It's banned in Malaysia because of the struggles of women plantation workers, and Tenaganita and Pan, and Vietnam, who also, the women were in the forefront of the struggle to stop the use of paraquat, and the Vietnamese government banned paraquat. So we are very happy that this is possible, and we hope more of such good news because of the campaign and the protests of women has an impact. So I just want to wish everyone happy Rural Women's Day. We know that the pandemic is affecting all rural people, men and women, but this Speak Out shows the increased burden of rural women across Asia. We hope that this Speak Out has served to amplify your voices and our voices in terms of highlighting the urgent actions that government need to take, including the provision of health services for women, support for agricultural production, and immediate relief, notwithstanding long-term demands such as land reform and genuine rural development. So as part of this 16 days of global action on agroecology, we are glad that this Speak Out also served as a testimony to the fact that the practice of agroecology helps alleviate some of the burden that rural women are carrying and should further be promoted as part of the new normal. The testimonies actually, when I was listening to it, I couldn't leave my chair, although, we went on for almost 2.5 hours. It was amazing. And it provided the real situation of women in this time of the pandemic. We are seeing workloads increasing, violence against women increasing, and throughout Asia Pacific, we have feeling the discrimination and exploitation that has intensified not only on women, but also workers and peasants and indigenous people, and the failure of neoliberal policies. It's very clear. They have failed. But at the same time, we have women and women's groups launching campaigns and protests against many campaigns, but against terror laws in the Philippines. We're seeing the protests against the omnibus law in Indonesia. And women are organizing everywhere and mobilizing for change, not only for agroecology and genuine agrarian reform. They're also challenging government policies, and they are fighting to change food systems. So it's been a tremendous honor, and the I feel happy that we are part of this ARWC, the Asian Rural Women's Coalition. We are all bringing our skills, our experiences together to um, um, amplify our voices, our actions, our solidarity among countries, and between sisters and our brothers who are also in the same struggle with us. But of course, women's struggles are more the struggles are so impactful. It's also the kind of the effects and the impacts on women is being felt everywhere. So let's keep on our solidarity and keep on our collaboration, not only in Asia but also in other parts of the world, wherever the masses, where the poor, the workers, the peasants, and the rural women are joining forces. So I just also would like to thank the organizations that continue to unite and work together as the Asian Rural Women's Coalition, and those who have made this Speak Out possible. I would like to thank Gabriela, Vikalpani, Warak, Arrow, SRED, and the Tamil Nadu Women's Forum, Beyond Beijing Committee, Women Awareness Group, Soruni, Amihan, Jagonari, and others who have joined us, and have made good questions to the panelists, and we hope that this sharing continues. So now we would like to chant to close this Speak Out. Please switch on, all panelists, please switch on your mics. And for those who are attending this session, can you also switch on your mics, because we want to chant together this chant which says, rural women of the world, fight for our rights, land, food, and justice now. So can we all chant this together? 1, 2, 3. Rural women
of the world,
fight for our rights,
land,
food,
and justice
now.
now.
Let's do one more round. Rural
You may turn on
women,
your cameras.
please turn
fight
on your
for
mics,
our
please. Yeah.
rights, land,
Okay.
food,
Food
and justice
and
now.
justice now.
One more round. Rural women
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 of the
of the
world,
world,
Rural women
for
of the
our
fight
world,
rights,
for
land,
our
fight
rights,
for our
land,
rights,
food,
food, and
justice
land, food,
justice
now.
justice
now.
now.
Thank you very
Now.
much. And we hope that we will come together very soon in other webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. There we have it. Thank you very, very much. Beyond this gathering, let us continue to fight, educate, and uphold the rights of all women across the globe. Thank you to our audience, organizers, and speakers for this activity.
Yeah. Hello.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, sorry.
Bye. Yes.
Triana, will you still be doing your
I don't think so, Ilang. So we
okay,
just
all right,
close the program. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
to
you so
all
much.
attendees.
Bye.
Thank you.